February 22nd, 2026. Mexican Special Forces kill Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, the most dangerous drug lord on Earth. His cartel responds with 250 highway blockades across 20 states, vehicles set on fire, 25 National Guard members dead in retaliation. And somewhere in Southern California, a young woman with a U.S. passport watches it happen from behind the counter of a coffee shop. Her name is Laisha Michelle Oseguera Gonzalez. She is El Mencho's youngest daughter. Mexico wants her for kidnapping military personnel. The DEA has files on her husband. The U.S. government has never charged her with a single crime. This is the story of how a cartel princess became the most untouchable woman in Narco history. When El Mencho was killed in Toliman, Jalisco, the world watched to see who would show up at the funeral. His son, El Menchito, he is in a U.S. federal prison serving life, cannot show up. His wife, Rosalinda La Jefa, she had already done time for money laundering. His daughter, Jessica, 30 months in federal custody for her role in cartel finances. But there, captured by photographers at the burial of the world's most wanted drug lord, was Laisha, in Mexico, in public, at a high-profile event that every intelligence agency in 2 countries was monitoring. She was not hiding. She was not afraid. She stood there, paid her respects, and walked away. That moment tells you everything you need to know about Laisha Oseguera Gonzalez. While the rest of her family collapsed around her, prison sentences, extraditions, executions, she has never been charged in the United States, never convicted, never extradited. She's the ghost of the Oseguera dynasty, and nobody knows how she keeps walking through walls. To understand Laisha, you have to understand what she was born into, because this is not a story about a girl who got pulled into the cartel life. This is a story about a girl who was the cartel life from the moment she took her first breath. Her father, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, built the Jalisco New Generation Cartel from the remnants of the Milenio Cartel into the most violent criminal organization in the Western Hemisphere. RPGs, 50 caliber machine guns, his own private SWAT teams. He shot down military helicopters. He had a $10 million U.S. State Department bounty on his head. When he died, Mexico did not celebrate. Mexico held its breath because CJNG went to war immediately. Her mother, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, La Jefa, was not just a drug lord's wife. She was the CFO of a billion-dollar criminal enterprise. She personally managed over 70 businesses used for laundering cartel money, moving over $50 million between 2015 and 2016 alone. And her mother's family? The Gonzalez Valencias were not just connected, they were the financial architecture of CJNG itself. Rosalinda's brother, Abigail Gonzalez Valencia El Queenie, was a financial genius who understood international banking, shell companies, and offshore accounts on a level that rivaled legitimate hedge funds. The family owned businesses across multiple countries, bank accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, and legitimate enterprises that cleaned cartel money so thoroughly it was almost impossible to trace. This is the world Laisha was born into. Not poverty, not desperation, power, structures, a criminal empire disguised as a family business. And from childhood, she had a front row seat to all of it. Here is something that gets overlooked when people talk about cartel families. Birth order matters. El Menchito, the oldest son, born in San Francisco in 1990, a U.S. citizen, he was always the heir. From childhood, he was groomed to take over CJNG operations, logistics, violence, command structure. He became El Mencho's second in command, managing international drug shipments, coordinating enforcers, running the organization's most sensitive operations. He got arrested, fought extradition, got extradited anyway, and now he is serving life in a U.S. federal prison. Jessica, the middle child, La Negra, was trained in the financial side just like her mother. She learned how to run businesses, how to use legitimate fronts to clean dirty money. She got caught too, 30 months in federal custody. And then there's Laisha, the baby, the youngest daughter. In cartel families, the youngest child sometimes gets the most unusual path. Not positioned as the operational heir, not groomed as the financial operator. Instead, she got something more valuable: American citizenship, a low profile, and the freedom to stay in the background. While El Menchito was learning violence and Jessica was learning finance, Laisha was learning how to be invisible, how to move between two worlds without leaving footprints in either one, how to be present without being recorded, how to be connected without being charged. El Mencho was building a cartel with guns and terror that his youngest daughter may have been his most sophisticated operation. Growing up in the Oseguera household was a masterclass in criminal enterprise. Her mother managed 70 different businesses across multiple industries: healthcare, tourism, hospitality, retail, real estate, agriculture. As a child and teenager, Laisha would have watched how money laundering actually works, how you take drug proceeds and transform them into legitimate income through restaurants, construction companies, agricultural operations, how paperwork becomes armor, how businesses become shields. She would have seen her father's power, how entire regions of Jalisco operated under CJNG control, the armed convoys, the safe houses, the movement. She would have understood from an early age that her family's wealth was built on violence and that law enforcement in two countries would destroy them if given the chance. But she also experienced the other side. Because of her American birth, Laisha had something her father never had after 1992, the ability to cross the border legally, a valid US passport, constitutional protections, the freedom to just live in California, drive on the freeway, shop at Target, be normal. Most cartel children are trapped. They are born in Mexico, raised in Mexico, die in Mexico. The border is a wall for them as much as anyone else. Laisha could step through it whenever she wanted. By her teenage years, as CJNG consolidated power across Western Mexico, Laisha was watching and learning. Not flashy, not posting luxury cars on social media like some narco children who confuse carelessness for confidence. Not operationally visible like her brother who led violent operations. She was studying. And what she was studying was how to survive when everything around you falls apart. Around 2020 to 2021, Laisha, now in her late teens, early 20s, got involved with Christian Fernando Gutierrez Ochoa, known as El Gaucho. And this was not a romance, this was a merger. El Gaucho was born in 1987, making him roughly 14 to 15 years older than Laisha. Age gaps like this are not unusual in cartel culture, where alliances between families are often cemented through strategic relationships. But El Gaucho was not just any CJNG operative, he was narco royalty himself. His father, José Luis Gutiérrez Valencia, Don Cello, was a legendary CJNG trafficker, the man who threw a party inside Puente Grande maximum security prison in 2013 while he was being held there. A full narco celebration, live band, alcohol, Don Cello announcing to the entire facility that he was the one who ruled there. The video leaked, international scandal, a perfect example of how thoroughly CJNG had corrupted Mexican institutions. When Don Cello was released in November 2017, authorities raided his ranch and found gold-plated pistols engraved with San Judas and Ferrari logos, exotic birds, a Bengal tiger. 10 days after his release, Mexican Marines tracked him down and killed him. El Gaucho inherited everything: his father's position, his father's connections, and his father's vendetta against the Mexican government. But here is what makes the alliance with Laisha even more significant. El Gaucho's sister was married to El Menchito, Laisha's brother, so when Laisha and El Gaucho got together, you had El Mencho's daughter and Don Cello's son, El Mencho's son and Don Cello's daughter, two of the most powerful CJNG families completely intertwined through blood. This was dynasty building. This was making sure power stayed within trusted bloodlines for a generation. Between 2014 and 2023, El Gaucho personally coordinated the transportation of 40,000 kilograms of methamphetamine and 2,000 kilograms of cocaine, 88,000 pounds of meth, 4,400 pounds of cocaine. And his real specialty was not just moving product, it was cleaning money through real estate, shell companies, and international transfers. He was sophisticated, careful, and one of El Mencho's most trusted associates. When Laisha got with El Gaucho, she was not falling for a cartel guy. She was stepping fully into the operational world of CJNG. And November 2021 was when that world demanded everything from her. November 15, 2021, Mexican authorities arrest Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia, La Jefa, Laisha's mother. For most people, a parent getting arrested is a moment of helplessness. You call a lawyer, you wait, you hope. Laisha did not wait. Within hours, she and El Gaucho were putting together a plan, a violent, desperate plan that reveals exactly how embedded she was in cartel operations. The plan? Kidnap Mexican military personnel and trade them for Rosalinda's release. That same day, November 15, 2021, Laisha, El Gaucho, and other CJNG operatives targeted 2 Mexican Navy members in a Walmart parking lot in Zapopan, Jalisco. Public space, middle of the day, professional military personnel grabbed in a coordinated operation executed by people who trained for exactly this kind of work. For 4 days, those 2 sailors were held hostage. 4 days of their families not knowing if they were alive. 4 days of the Mexican Navy launching a massive manhunt through CJNG territory, where the cartel has informants everywhere and safe houses hidden throughout the region. November 19th, authorities received a tip. Both sailors were found alive, kneeling on a roadside in Puerto Vallarta, Jalisco. The female sailor was physically unharmed, but traumatized. The male sailor had been beaten. The message was deliberate. CJNG could have killed him, but they chose to release him damaged, a demonstration of power, an invitation to negotiate. The Mexican government did not negotiate. Rosalinda stayed in custody. The sailors were recovered, and Laisha Michelle Oseguera Gonzalez became a wanted fugitive in Mexico for kidnapping military personnel, one of the most serious charges on the books. She had crossed a line that most cartel children never cross. She had not just inherited her family's criminal empire, she had personally orchestrated violence. She had used human lives as bargaining chips. She had attacked the Mexican state directly. And she was 20 years old. When the heat got too intense in Mexico, they ran. But not to another Mexican state, not to the mountains, north into the United States. For El Gaucho, this meant a smuggling tunnel near Tijuana, sophisticated infrastructure with ventilation, lighting, and rail systems, now used to move a person instead of product. He crossed with a complete false identity, fraudulent documents, and in September 2023, he obtained a California driver's license under the name Luis Miguel Martinez with a fabricated social security number. Luis Miguel Martinez, a completely invented person. But before he crossed, something happened that reads like a scene from a crime thriller. Word spread through CJNG. El Mencho had killed El Gaucho. According to DEA informants, El Mencho told his associates he had executed his son-in-law for lying. The story circulated through the cartel, through rival organizations, through Mexican intelligence. Everyone believed El Gaucho was dead. It was a lie, a carefully orchestrated deception that El Mencho himself helped engineer to give his son-in-law a ghost's freedom. If everyone thinks you are dead, nobody is looking for you. For Laisha, she did not need a tunnel. She did not need a fake identity. She had a US passport. She simply walked through a border crossing, showed her documents, and drove north into California. While El Gaucho was officially a corpse in Mexico's intelligence files, Laisha was already setting up their new life. They did not hide in a studio apartment. They did not sleep on a friend's couch. They bought a $1.2 million mansion in Riverside, California. Here's what makes Laisha's story genuinely unprecedented in the world of organized crime. She was not hiding, not really. She was living in a $1.2 million house in one of America's most surveilled countries. Her husband, a man with DEA files and Mexican arrest warrants, was driving around Southern California on a fake ID. And Laisha herself, wanted in Mexico for kidnapping military personnel, daughter of the world's most wanted drug lord, wife of a major CJNG money launderer, was allegedly running a coffee shop. A coffee shop. The audacity of that cover is not accidental, it's strategic. It is the same playbook her mother used with 70 legitimate businesses in Mexico. It is the same philosophy her uncle El Queenie applied to international shell companies. Make yourself look boring. make yourself look small, give the appearance of ordinary commerce, and the most extraordinary criminal history becomes background noise. But eventually, luck runs out. El Gaucho's fake identity unraveled. U.S. federal authorities arrested him. He was charged with drug trafficking conspiracy, money laundering, and using a fraudulent identity. Prosecutors laid out the full picture: 40,000 kilograms of meth, years of money laundering, the fake California license. In 2025, he was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months in federal prison. Laisha, still free, still never charged in the United States. Let us look at the scoreboard. El Menchito, life in U.S. federal prison. Jessica Johanna, 30 months federal custody. El Gaucho, 11 years and 8 months. Rosalinda, arrested, prosecuted, imprisoned. El Mencho, killed by Mexican special forces. And Laisha, no U.S. charges, no extradition proceedings, living somewhere in California. The Mexican arrest warrant for the 2021 kidnapping still exists, but Mexico cannot touch her on American soil without a formal extradition request. And for extradition to work, the U.S. government would have to take that request seriously and build its own case, which requires evidence, which requires cooperation, which requires a level of U.S.-Mexico judicial coordination that historically moves slowly. She exists in a gap between two legal systems, wanted in one country, uncharged in another, entitled to the protections of U.S. citizenship while being accused of attacking the Mexican state. And the most extraordinary thing? She showed up at her father's funeral in Mexico, in public, after everything. Either she has protection we do not know about, or she calculated that the risk was worth it to pay respects to the man who built everything she's ever known. Or she is telling both governments, you know where I am, and you still cannot touch me. Laisha Michelle Oseguera Gonzalez is not just one woman, she is a blueprint. She represents the evolution of how cartel families operate in the 21st century. The old model was violence in territory, control land, control product, control people. The Zetas model, the Sinaloa model in its early days, El Mencho's own model built on RPGs and military helicopters. But Laisha represents something different. The new model is legal identity as a weapon, U.S. citizenship as armor, ordinary-looking commerce as camouflage, the ability to participate in cartel operations without creating prosecutable evidence of direct participation. She was born American, she was raised cartel, and she figured out how to use both identities to survive when the world her family built collapsed around her. Her brother tried to inherit the empire by force, prison. Her sister tried to run the finances, prison. Her mother tried to manage it all, prison. Her father tried to control Mexico with an iron fist, dead. Laisha tried something different. She tried to disappear into plain sight, and so far, it's working. The question everyone is asking is not whether Laisha is guilty. The evidence trail, the kidnapping, the cartel connections, the life with El Gaucho paints a clear picture of someone deeply embedded in CJNG operations. The question is whether the law can reach her. And right now, in early 2026, with her father dead, her husband in federal prison, her brother serving life, and her mother having done time, Laisha is the last one standing from a dynasty that ruled the most violent cartel in Mexico for over a decade. She's 24 years old, she has a US passport, and she is still out there. The ghost of a narco dynasty, free, untouchable, and invisible to the law that caught everyone around her. For now.